Have you ever experienced a moment when time feels like it just stops? A moment when everything around you is falling apart, yet a chance encounter changes the way you see life forever. This is the story of such a day, September 11th, 2001, and a man named Don, whom Sarah Bunting, the author of the popular blog Tomato Nation, happened to meet amidst the chaos. Picture yourself standing in the lobby of a bank in Lower Manhattan. The sky is clear, the familiar sounds of Wall Street echo around you. Sarah walks in, completely unaware that her world is about to be turned upside down in just a few hours. And then, suddenly, everything changes. Noise. The first hints of smoke, panic creeping into the once calm space. Amidst this chaos, Sarah meets Donna, black man, approximately 25 to 35 years old, about 5 feet 9 inches to 6 feet tall, wearing a grey plaid suit and carrying a black soft briefcase. No one knew what would happen next, but in that fleeting moment, a bond was formed. Don, whom Sarah had just met minutes ago, became her companion in disaster, guiding her through the streets of Lower Manhattan to safety. The most striking and unforgettable detail. That day happened to be Dawn's birthday, a detail that might seem small under normal circumstances, yet in the midst of life and death, it became an indelible memory for Sarah. Even years later, she still thinks about this man, about the calm and kindness he brought on a day when the entire city was shaken. But she never found Don again. And that's the mystery, the big question. Where is Don now? The morning of September 11th started like any other, but within moments, everything changed. Sarah stepped outside the bank, and the streets of Lower Manhattan were no longer familiar. Smoke curled into the sky, sirens wailed in the distance, and people ran in all directions, some shouting, others frozen in disbelief. The world she knew was now replaced by chaos. Amid the frantic crowd, Don appeared beside her. There was something about his presence, composed, almost grounding, that cut through the panic. He didn't shout, didn't push. He simply took the first step forward, and Sarah instinctively followed. For minutes, every move mattered. Each street corner, each alley, each building shadow could be a potential hazard. Sarah recalls noticing little details. Dawn's briefcase swinging slightly as he moved, his gaze scanning for exits. His voice calm as he said, "We'll get out of this. Stay close." He mentioned casually, almost like it was the simplest fact in the world. "It's my birthday today." For a moment, the mundane collided with the extraordinary. Man celebrating life while the city burned around them. They moved together through the streets, weaving through panicked crowds, ducking under smoke clouds, and avoiding debris. Sarah felt a mixture of fear and awe. Fear for their lives, awe for the humanity that shone through Dawn's calm demeanor. He became her anchor in the storm, a guide through the madness, someone who turned terror into a shared experience of survival. Every step brought them closer to safety, yet the city around them seemed to crumble. And while the chaos unfolded, Sarah couldn't shake the thought. Who was this man really? And why was their encounter destined to be so fleeting? She would never know. At least, not yet. Every step through Lower Manhattan that morning was a gamble. Smoke thickened the air, acrid and choking. Sirens blared from every direction, mingling with the distant, deafening roar of collapsing buildings. People screamed, ran, and stumbled, some helping each other, some panicking entirely. Sarah clutched her purse tightly, her heart racing, her mind struggling to process the impossible reality around her. Don remained her guide, calm, deliberate, moving with purpose. He scanned every street, every corner, making split-second decisions that kept them out of harm's way. His presence was a steadying force, like a lighthouse in a storm. Sarah had never met him before, and yet she trusted him instinctively at one point. They paused briefly behind a crumbling doorway, smoke curling round them, debris littering the street, and the distant sound of sirens piercing the chaos. Don looked at her and said softly, almost as if to break the tension, "Happy birthday to me, I guess." Not the way I expected to celebrate. Sarah couldn't help but chuckle through her fear. That small human moment of birthday amidst destruction became a fragile thread of normalcy, a reminder that life continues even in the worst of circumstances. They continued moving, weaving through panicked crowds, sometimes helping others, sometimes silently pushing forward, focused only on survival. Every turn, every shadow held danger, yet Sarah noticed how Don never faltered. His calmness, his small gestures of reassurance, the way he spoke softly despite the chaos, it was this humanity that made the terror bearable. By the time they reached a relative safety point, a street partially cleared of debris and smoke, Sarah felt an overwhelming mix of relief and disbelief. They had survived together, and in that survival, an unspoken bond had formed. A bond forged not by words, but by shared fear, courage, and humanity. And yet, as they parted ways, Sarah knew one thing: she would never forget this man, Don, who had appeared in her life for a few critical hours and then vanished. Who was he really? Where did he go after that day? The questions lingered, forming a mystery that would haunt her every September 11th. Days turned into weeks, and the city began to heal in its own fractured way. Buildings were cleared, streets reopened, but the events of that morning remained burned into the memories of everyone who had been there. For Sarah, one memory stood out above all. Don, after parting ways that morning, she had hoped, perhaps naively, that she could find him again, to thank him, to let him know that his calm presence had meant more than words could express. She remembered every detail: the grey plaid suit, the black briefcase, the quiet reassurance in his voice, even the small, almost absurd fact that it was his birthday. Sarah scoured the internet, reached out to old contacts, even posted on blogs and forums anything that might lead her to him. She called it Operation Find Don, a personal mission to reconnect with the man who had been her anchor in one of the most chaotic moments of her life. Yet, time passed, and Don remained elusive. The mystery persisted. Years later, Sarah would write about him in her blog, sharing the story with readers around the world. Don became more than a man. He was a symbol of humanity amidst disaster, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, strangers can show profound kindness. Every September 11th, the memory of him resurfaced, like a quiet echo in her mind. And still, the questions lingered. Who was Don beyond that morning? Where had he gone after disappearing into the crowd? Was he still out there somewhere, living a life entirely unaware of the impact he had left behind? These unanswered questions made the story not just about survival, but about the fleeting, fragile connections that shape our lives in ways we can never fully understand. Sarah never found Don, but the story remained a testament to courage, compassion, and the unforgettable moments that define us. And every year, when the anniversary of September 11th arrives, she pauses to remember him. Wherever he is, she hopes he is safe. And quietly, she wishes him a happy birthday. The streets of Lower Manhattan that morning were unrecognizable. Buildings once familiar now loomed like dark, shattered monuments. Smoke curled from above, black and suffocating, filling every alley and street corner. Sirens screamed in every direction, and the air carried the metallic tang of dust and fear. Each step Sarah took felt like walking through a living nightmare. Beside her, Don moved with precision, scanning the chaos with a calm urgency. Every glance he gave was calculated, every step deliberate. He guided Sarah past debris, past people frozen in shock, past the unknown hazards that seemed to lurk around every corner. She noticed small details, the way his briefcase swayed lightly with each step, the focused set of his jaw, and the steadiness of his voice when he reassured her to keep moving. At one intersection, a plume of smoke blocked their path. People around them panicked, pushing, shouting, trying to find any escape. Don calmly took her hand, guiding her along a narrow side street barely visible through the haze. "Stay close," he said, his tone soft but firm. "We'll get out of this." It was the simple certainty in his voice that made Sarah feel grounded amid chaos. For Sarah, every sound was amplified, distant crashes, footsteps pounding on pavement, frantic shouts from people she didn't know. Her heart raced, but she couldn't help noticing the quiet moments of humanity amid the terror, strangers helping strangers, holding hands, leading each other to safety. Don had become the embodiment of that humanity, a single constant in the storm. Even in the midst of fear, the odd fact that it was his birthday lingered in her mind. There was something surreal about celebrating life in the shadow of death, a stark reminder that life and human connection persisted even in the darkest hours. That morning, every moment with Don became a memory she would carry forever, each one etched into her mind with painful clarity. And yet, as they neared what seemed like relative safety, the reality struck her. This bond, this connection, was fleeting. They would soon part ways, and she would never know if she would see him again. The streets of Lower Manhattan that morning weren't just filled with chaos, they were a stage for fleeting acts of courage and kindness, moments that would define her for years to come. As the smoke began to thin and the noise of chaos slightly receded, Sarah and Don reached a part of the city that felt, for a fleeting moment, like a haven. The streets were still crowded, the air still thick with dust, but the immediate danger seemed less imminent. It was here, in this fragile calm, that reality set in. Their time together was ending. Sarah turned to look at Don. She wanted to say so many things, thank him, tell him how much his presence had meant, but the words caught in her throat. He had been her anchor, her guide through the storm. And now the storm was easing, and she would have to continue without him. Don seemed to sense her hesitation. He offered a small, reassuring smile, the kind that could calm even the most frantic heart. "Take care of yourself," he said simply. No grand gestures, no speeches, just a quiet human message that carried more weight than any words could dot. As they parted ways, Sarah watched him disappear into the crowd. Each step he took seemed to pull him further from her grasp, and yet, somehow, the memory of him felt impossible to lose. Every detail, the grey plaid suit, the black briefcase, his calm, steady demeanor, the almost absurd fact that it was his birthday was etched indelibly into her mind. Walking away, Sarah felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and profound loss. She had survived, yes, but in surviving, she had also lost something precious, the connection with a stranger who had, for a brief and fleeting moment, been everything she needed to get through the worst day of her life, even as the sounds of sirens faded into the distance, and the city slowly tried to regain a sense of normalcy. Sarah knew this encounter would never leave her. Dawn's presence, though brief, had left a mark that would linger with her for years, an unforgettable reminder of courage, kindness, and humanity amid unimaginable chaos. And so began a personal quest, a quiet mission that Sarah would later call Operation Find Dawn, the search for the man who had unknowingly changed the course of her morning, her memories, and perhaps, in some small way, her life. In the weeks following September 11th, life slowly began to resume its normal rhythm, but for Sarah, the memory of Don lingered like a shadow she couldn't shake. She knew she had to find him not for herself, but to express the gratitude that had never left her heart. What started as a fleeting thought quickly became a personal mission she dubbed Operation Find Don. Sarah retraced her steps mentally, recalling every detail: the bank lobby where they first met, the streets they navigated together, even the sound of his voice and the casual mention of his birthday. She scoured social media, posted on blogs, and reached out to anyone who might know someone from Jersey City, the man she remembered so vividly, yet who had vanished like a ghost. Every attempt led to dead ends, but each effort also deepened the mystery. Who was Don beyond that morning? Did he even remember her? Was he aware of the impact he had made in a stranger's life on a day that had changed the world forever? Sarah never stopped wondering. Over the years, she shared the story online, not just as a personal account, but as a testament to the quiet heroism that can emerge in moments of disaster. Readers from around the world connected with the story, drawn to the idea that amidst chaos, ordinary people can show extraordinary courage and kindness. Don became more than a man. He became a symbol of human connection, of empathy in the face of fear, and of the fleeting, beautiful moments that define our lives. Every September 11th, Sarah revisits the memory, imagining where Don might be and wishing him well. She knows she may never see him again, but the story remains alive, a tribute to the unspoken bonds formed in the most unexpected circumstances. And somewhere out there, Don may still be living his life, unaware of the profound mark he left on someone who once walked beside him through the chaos Sarah never found. Don, yet through the years, that fleeting encounter has grown into a story of courage, gratitude, and the enduring human spirit. It's a story that reminds us, sometimes, the people we meet for just a moment can leave the most lasting impact on our lives. Even years after that fateful day, Sarah often thinks back not only to the chaos, but to the small human moments that made it bearable. Among all the smoke, noise, and fear, one detail stands out more than any other: Dawn's birthday. A seemingly ordinary fact, yet amid destruction, it became a symbol of resilience, of life continuing in the face of catastrophe. Sarah remembers the way Don mentioned it casually, almost as if celebrating life on a day marked by tragedy was a simple, almost absurd act of defiance. It was a fleeting comment, yet it captured something profoundly humaner. Reminder that even when the world falls apart, moments of humanity persist. Flashbacks flood her mind, the careful steps they took together, the brief pauses behind crumbling walls, the quiet reassurances that steadied her heart. Every gesture, every word became etched in her memory. It wasn't just survival, it was about connection. Two strangers, thrown together by circumstance, forming a bond that would linger for decades. Even without knowing each other's names, these reflections also deepen the mystery. Who was Don outside of those few critical hours? Did he remember her at all? Did he ever realize how much his calm, his kindness, had meant to someone in the middle of the worst day of her life? Questions without answers only added to the poignancy of the memory. In this segment of her life, Sarah learned something universal. Human connection often appears in the most unexpected ways, and even fleeting encounters can leave indelible marks. It's a lesson that resonates far beyond September 11th, a reminder that courage and kindness can thrive even amid fear and destruction. And while she may never see Don again, his presence continues to shape the way she remembers that day, reminding her and all of us that even in darkness, humanity shines brightest. As the years went by, Sarah realized that her story, her fleeting encounter with Don on that fateful morning, was more than just a personal memory. It was a story worth sharing. She wrote about it on her blog, Tomato Nation, recounting every detail: the chaos of Lower Manhattan, the smoke, the panicked crowds, and the calm, steadfast presence of Don. The response was overwhelming. Readers from around the world connected with the story, drawn not only to the historical event, but to the human connection at its heart. Comments poured in. People shared their own stories of strangers helping strangers, of unexpected acts of kindness in moments of fear. Don became more than a man. He became a symbol, representation of the quiet heroism that can emerge in the most unlikely circumstances. For many readers, the story was a reminder that amidst tragedy, humanity persists. It showed that courage doesn't always roar, it can appear in small gestures, in calm words, in the decision to simply help another person in need. And while Sarah still had not found Don, the story itself became a way to honor him, to keep his presence alive in the world, even if he was unaware of it. Through her writing, Sarah discovered that memories have power not only to preserve the past, but to inspire others. Dawn's birthday, casually mentioned amidst destruction, became a recurring detail that readers remembered. It symbolized life, persistence, and the simple, human moments that can shine brightest against a backdrop of chaos. And so, the story of Sarah and Don continued to live on, not only as a memory of survival, but as a testament to human connection, kindness, and the enduring spirit that can emerge even in our darkest hours. Every year, as September 11th approached, readers revisited the story, reflecting on the fleeting yet profound impact one person can have on another. Years passed, but every September 11th, Sarah's mind inevitably returned to that morning: the smoke, the sirens, the chaos, and, most vividly, to Don. She often wondered where he was, what he was doing, if he remembered her at all. The questions remained unanswered, but the impact of those fleeting hours had shaped her life in profound ways. In her reflections, Sarah realized the true power of that encounter wasn't only about survival. It was about human connection, how a stranger's calm presence could transform fear into courage, panic into hope. Don had been more than a guide through chaos. He had been a reminder that even in the darkest hours, ordinary people can exhibit extraordinary kindness. She imagined him celebrating another birthday somewhere, unaware of the life he had touched, and that thought alone, bittersweet as it was, brought her a sense of closure and gratitude. Life often moves on without explaining itself, yet sometimes, even brief moments leave permanent marks. The story of Sarah and Don became a narrative not just about September 11th, but about humanity itself, fleeting, fragile, and beautiful. It reminded readers and now viewers of the extraordinary potential within ordinary people, One small act of calm, one simple gesture of kindness, can ripple far beyond the immediate moment. And as the camera of memory pans back, the city slowly returning to normalcy that morning, we see two strangers, one carrying the weight of chaos, the other carrying the quiet strength to guide and reassure. Their paths diverge, their lives continue, but the bond forged in those hours remains eternal proof that even in a world shaken by tragedy, the human spirit endures, quietly, steadfastly, and beautifully too. So wherever Don is today, Sarah and all of us who hear this story send our gratitude. Happy birthday, Don, and thank you for being a beacon of humanity on a day that changed the world forever. Even in the chaos, Sarah's memory retained the tiniest details that seemed insignificant at the time, but now painted a vivid picture of survival. The smell of smoke mixed with the scent of concrete and dust. A newspaper fluttered down an alley, pages torn and blackened. Sirens echoed, sometimes close, sometimes far away, creating a terrifying rhythm that underscored every step. Don guided her with quiet precision. He would point out safer paths, signal her to duck under a low doorway, or pause briefly to assess each street before moving forward. The crowd surged and split around them, people pushing, crying, or helping one another. In the midst of fear, Sarah noticed small acts of heroism. A man helping an elderly woman, strangers sharing water, a firefighter signaling directions. Each action by Don stood out in contrast. His calmness wasn't just about moving safely. It was a beacon of rationality in a world gone mad. He occasionally glanced at Sarah with reassurance, a silent acknowledgement that she wasn't alone. Those few gestures, almost imperceptible, anchored her in the chaos. Every turn, every shadow, every unexpected obstacle heightened the tension. The streets themselves seemed alive, shifting and threatening, yet Don navigated them with a steady hand. For Sarah, each small detail, the crunch of debris underfoot, the sudden shouts, the fleeting glimpses of the skyline obscured by smoke was a heartbeat in the story of survival, a rhythm that kept her present and alive. By focusing on these details, Sarah realized that survival wasn't just about distance covered or buildings avoided, was about noticing the human connections, the fleeting moments that defined courage, and the quiet acts of kindness that stood out amid the chaos. The streets were unrecognizable, shrouded in smoke and chaos. Every step Sarah took felt uncertain, each corner hiding potential danger. The roar of collapsing buildings echoed in the distance, vibrating through the pavement beneath her feet. Her lungs burned from the acrid air, her heart pounded like a drum. And yet she kept moving, because beside her was Don. Steady, calm, unwavering. At one point, a street seemed completely blocked by debris. People panicked, some screaming, others frozen in indecision. Don grabbed her hand, guiding her along a narrow alley barely wide enough to pass. Each step was deliberate, every movement a choice between life and death. Sarah felt the weight of every decision pressing on her chest, the suffocating fear that any misstep could be fatal. And yet, amidst this terror, small moments of humanity flickered. Don offered quiet reassurances, a nod here, a soft word there. Strangers helped each other, lending hands, water, and courage. For Sarah, these moments were surreal, a mixture of fear and awe, witnessing both the fragility and strength of humanity in the same heartbeat. Her body screamed with exhaustion, but the instinct to survive, to follow Dawn's guidance, kept her moving. Each street, each turn, each carefully chosen path was a test of nerve and endurance. She realized that survival was not just about avoiding physical danger, was about maintaining composure, noticing opportunities, and trusting the humanity around her, especially in Dawn's steady presence. By the time they emerged onto a street partially cleared of debris, Sarah felt a wave of relief and disbelief. They had made it through, together, against impossible odds. Her body trembled, her mind raced. But one thing was certain: she would never forget the man who had guided her through the storm. In that moment, Don was more than a companion. He was a symbol of courage, calm, and the quiet power of human connection, the very essence of hope amidst chaos. And as the dust settled, the memory of that morning became a story Sarah would carry with her for the rest of her life. Once Sarah was finally out of the immediate danger, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. The streets of Lower Manhattan were still filled with smoke and chaos, but a sense of fragile calm had settled over her. Her body ached, her lungs burned, and yet her mind was preoccupied with one thought: Don. She replayed every detail in her mind: the calmness in his eyes, the measured steps, the reassuring gestures, and, of course, the casual mention of his birthday. In the middle of one of the darkest days of her life, Don had been a steady anchor, a human presence that turned fear into endurance. Over the weeks, Sarah reflected on how fleeting and fragile human connections can be. Two strangers, brought together by circumstance, had shared a bond that saved her life. And yet, they were strangers in every sense. She did not know his last name, his life outside those critical hours, or whether he remembered her at all. The mystery of Don lingered like a quiet ache, a constant question mark in her memories. But even unanswered questions carry meaning. Sarah realized that the essence of that day was not only survival, but also the demonstration of humanity under pressure. Dawn's actions, small yet significant, had left an indelible mark on her life. And it wasn't just about gratitude. It was about understanding that kindness, courage, and calm can ripple out in ways we may never fully comprehend. Years later, as Sarah shared the story with the world, she noticed something remarkable. Readers connected with it not just as a historical account, but as a lesson in humanity. They saw themselves in the chaos. They imagined themselves helping or being helped, and they recognized the profound impact of fleeting connections. Don, the man she may never find again, became a simpler, quiet hero who reminded everyone that even in moments of overwhelming fear, people have the power to change lives. Determined not to let the memory fade, Sarah embarked on what she called Operation Find Don. She scoured social media, posted on blogs, reached out to anyone who might know someone from Jersey City, and retraced her steps through Lower Manhattan. Every lead ended in disappointment, yet the quest itself became a part of her story, a thread connecting past chaos to the present. Sarah's blog posts detailed the search, painting a vivid picture of that day, the streets, the smoke, and most importantly, Dawn's calm presence. Readers responded in overwhelming numbers. Some shared similar experiences, recounting strangers who had guided them through danger. Others offered advice, connections, or simply words of encouragement. Through this, Dawn's story began to transcend the personal. He became a symbol of humanity, courage, and the fleeting yet profound connections we make in extraordinary circumstances. Even though she never found Don, the search itself brought meaning. It reminded Sarah and everyone reading that some encounters leave permanent marks, even if the people involved move on, oblivious to the impact they had. The story of Dawn's birthday, casually mentioned amidst destruction, became a recurring detail readers remembered, a symbol of life persisting even in moments of tragedy. In sharing her story, Sarah realized that the search wasn't just for Dawn, it was a search for understanding, for closure, and for recognition of the extraordinary kindness that exists in ordinary people. Every comment, every message, every story shared in response became part of the narrative, reinforcing the idea that even fleeting moments can ripple through time, connecting strangers and shaping lives in ways we may never fully comprehend. Years have passed, yet every September 11th, Sarah's mind drifts back to that morning, the smoke, the chaos, the screams, and, most vividly, to Dawn. She may never find him, may never know his full story, but the impact of those fleeting hours remains etched in her heart forever. In her reflections, she understands that the story isn't about finding Dawn, it's about recognizing the quiet heroism that exists in everyday people, the calm presence, the helping hand, the simple act of guiding someone through chaos. Dawn had embodied that heroism, not with fanfare, but with quiet courage and humanity. Even the mention of his birthday amid disaster stands as a symbol, a reminder that life persists, that human connection endures, and that small acts of kindness can leave indelible marks. Sarah imagines him somewhere, living his life, unaware of the profound difference he made. And that's enough. The story itself has become a tribute, not just to Dawn, but to the countless strangers who show up for one another when it matters most. Through this story, Sarah teaches us something universal. Even in the darkest moments, humanity shines. Courage is not always loud. It is often quiet, steadfast, and unassuming. And the connections we forge, even if fleeting, can ripple far beyond what we imagine, leaving traces of hope, kindness, and resilience in the hearts of others. So, wherever Dawn is today, Sarah sends her gratitude, and in the echo of that fateful morning, we too can reflect on the strangers who guided us, the quiet heroes among us, and the enduring power of human connection. Happy birthday, Dawn. Thank you for reminding us that even in tragedy, humanity endures.